strategist, copywriter. That's kind of the 1-2 punch. And, somebody comes to me for, they want to build out a content program. What kind of customer do I want? And what's the most cost effective way for me to go and acquire them? People were still really shallow and didn't take the time uh, to start to convey that what we call thought leadership. It's just the expertise that they may have in an area. And now they just completely have AI do it. I think a lot of people who should be using LinkedIn aren't using it because they think they have to become an influencer, or they frame it as such, right? People are enjoying your writing, i.e., like they're having a dopamine hit from just like consuming your content, which means they're going to keep coming back for more of it. Premium put on like authentic human thought leadership, like actual faces, actual talking head.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Evernest Property Management Show. I am your host, Spencer Sutton, and today we are continuing on with this marketing theme. I mean, listen, when I have the microphone, I guess that means I get to talk about what I want to talk about. I don't have to talk about what Matthew wants to talk about. So I have brought a previous Evernester back on the show. I've got Lucas Wollschlager with me. Lucas, welcome back to the show, man.
Glad to be here. I think the last time I was on the show, it was 350,000. So it's
That was the old name.
then. It was. Yeah. It's great to be back.
Did you know when we started the podcast and we named it 303,000, we didn't even manage 3,000 doors. We managed like 2,300 or something, and we felt kind of fake. But like we were talking about before we hit record, marketing is all about smoke and mirrors. It's just really about perception. But anyway, I'm glad you're here. You and I worked together for a couple of years. So let's talk. Let's just kind of back up. Let's give everybody a little bit of your background, Lucas, and then I want to dive right into what you're doing now, because I think what you're doing now is very, very important. Everybody's talking about AI, but I want to talk about human generated content and how important that is, especially for property managers. But why don't you give everybody a brief just catch up on your history, your work history?
Yeah. So prior to being in the world of marketing, I was actually a missionary for a number of years. And here in the States, worked in churches and in high schools, college campuses. Um, and yeah, did that for 6, almost 7 years. And during that time, did a lot of public speaking, did a lot of, you know, what we call like discipleship and, so a lot of coaching, a lot of teaching, a lot of working with young men, especially.
Were you out? Were you raising support at the same time for yourself? Was that part of it? Yeah.
I mentioned, being a missionary because when I got to the end of my time, I had met a girl, I was looking to get married, I was looking to transition in life, and I was just kind of taking stock of what I did for the last number of years and what I was good at. And fundraising was a big one. So like the sales, having to craft a story and make asks and all of that. Um, but a lot of public speaking, a lot of teaching, a lot of communicating. And I went through this program called Praxis. It's like a college alternative. And it really opened me up to, the different core components of business, right? So sales, marketing, customer success, operations, the whole thing. And I just saw that my skill set, my experience really fit in marketing, and it was interesting. This was uh, 2019, pre-COVID. Uh, the internet was the kind of internet marketing and everything was new to me. I'd never, you know, really delved into it, but it was interesting. And so, anyways, I kind of went headfirst into it and landed in a tech startup, private equity firm. So got a lot of exposure across a lot of SaaS companies specifically. And shortly after that, that's when you came and poached me out of a Slack community, which was a fun little time there. And Yeah, spend some time with Evernest, which I loved. Really, really loved my time,
I mean,
with
you were really our first person other than me, and like
yeah,
I had like an administrative assistant, which that was great, but you were the first person that was more of like a specialist that I was like, "You know what? I need somebody who's a specialist, who's great with writing and words because I know how
mm,
important copywriting is." And so, yeah, I'm glad I'm still a part of that community, even though I hadn't been on that Slack channel in probably 5 years. But
yeah, no, yeah, exactly. It was a lot of fun. I was it was perfect timing for me too because it was a point in my life where I was becoming interested in real estate for the first time and just trying to understand it personally as an investment opportunity and all of that. So it was perfect meld of personal interest and yeah, just a good situation. So um, once after that, I went on to another like more faith-based company, but it was this big portfolio company across real estate, tech, nonprofit, and I ran marketing there for a number of years. Um, and now, as of like 8 or so months ago, now I'm out on my own, running my own consultancy, working with founders, marketing teams, to yeah, create content, but do a lot of other things just kind of in the realm of marketing. So
what does that mean, do a lot of other things in the realm of marketing? Are you kind of like, "Hey, I can help you with copy, but people still wanna ask your advice about all the other stuff," right?
yeah, coffee is kind of the foot in the door. Is kind of how I like to talk about it. So when it comes to marketing myself, I market myself as strategist, copywriter. That's kind of the one-two punch. And somebody comes to me for they want to build out a content program. Very similar to what we did early days of Evernest. Or they need a new sales page or email flows or whatever. Right. That's really my opportunity to get in, get under the hood, ask a lot of more holistic, like higher level business questions, and then come back to them with some recommendations around like, yeah, we can definitely do this, but there are some like XYZ things that you should probably think about as well, right? So I get to act a little bit more as kind of uh, uh diagnosis, like somebody who gets to help them,
Yeah, you can, like you essentially point out all the problems, like, "Here are the holes in what you're doing. You're missing a lot here. Here's what you could do to shore this up."
and it's a really easy way, I talk to other consultants and solo business folks, and it's a super easy way to get into a business and then just to continue to add value. Just like prove that you're more than what they originally asked you to do, right? And that's been a great angle for me and has worked really well. But I again doing a lot of other things like account management on um, bigger campaigns or more like marketing strategy and then hand that off to actual like teams who are going to execute. So there's a lot of things, but it is kind of copy content is the foot in the
It
door.
starts
So
with copy and content. So let's I wanna back up to your time at Evernest because we were doing we were doing a lot of, even at the time we were doing video, we were writing content, but I wouldn't necessarily say we had a dialed in strategy. Talk about, because it was really just me for the most
mhm.
part, and I was just trying to wear a lot of hats at the same time. So talk about what you did for Evernest from a content strategy standpoint.
Yeah, I think when I came in, what was I mean, you relayed this to me, but we really started at the persona level, right? So like who Everness existed to serve. And I'm trying to remember the names of the key different segments we had. So you have
Mike and Mary, the
Mike,
investor, and Susie and Steve. Susie and Steve, the homeowner.
you have the homeowner, yeah, and we were really trying to double down on the investor, right? So we were really wanting to build out like an investor education hub where we started to attract like that more ideal client for Everness, right? The investor who has the intention of not just buying one property and whatever, or just accidentally falls into an extra property or house from someone, right? but has the intention to build a portfolio, and that just increasing the opportunity for y'all to manage more homes and so on and so forth, right? So it really started at that, and that I think kind of rounded out the strategy and really pointed in the direction what do we needed to do marketing wise, like tactically, right? So we started the investor podcast. We used that as kind of a content, the starting of like what we would call a content flywheel, right? The
Right, that was kinda like the hub
Well,
of the flywheel, yeah. This is the easiest thing to do is for us to sit down and talk about real estate investing, and then
highest leverage.
that's right, highest levers, and what can we do with this content to turn it into other forms of content?
Correct, correct. And I mean, Everness would. I mean, that was also just my understanding of why I got brought in when I did. Is y'all were kind of at that point where you could start to invest in it in a way that you create a flywheel effect by investing in a pillar piece that then you can go and distribute across multiple channels and then just be consistent. Like it's just consistency at that point. And we did it.
Yeah.
I thought that I learned a lot during that time for sure. It's great working alongside you and just learning more about the space. But I think it is because at the time we were seeing so many of these other people in directly in like rental investing or even like tertiary, markets were, doing this kind of media, this kind of content. Education at that point was really, really big, 2019, 2020, before COVID, like, the market was hot. People were trying to understand, what the market economics and situation looked like in all these different places, right? And I think we were able to speak to it, provide a lot of, insights and research and, yeah, it was a good time.
So what do you think, and I love your post on LinkedIn. You post a lot on LinkedIn, and I'm guessing that's where you generate leads for your business a lot of times is posting on LinkedIn. What do you what do you think people missed? Like before when you and I were working together at Evernest, there was no AI, right? There was no, you couldn't plop in a prompt and write an article on whatever through ChatGPT. But what do you think when you look at the landscape of content out there, what do you think people are getting wrong today?
Well, you know, 2.5 years ago, I'd have said something probably a little different than what I will now, but not entirely. I think before people were primarily writing for search engines or they were, um, just kinda staying surface level. I think that that was one of the unlocks that we had at Evernest was we went deep on a lot of things, which was great. Again, leveraging, audio, video formats where you can just kind of riff, right? You can talk. It's a lot easier to talk and process that way versus having to sit down, start with a blank page, and then crank that out, right? And so for us, we were able to go deeper and really start to show some deep expertise and kind of all these different elements of rental investing and property management, right? And so I think that's a huge thing is before like people were still really shallow and didn't take the time uh to start to convey that what we would call thought leadership, just the expertise that they may have in an area. And now they just completely have AI do it. Like that's and that's problematic. I do this for a living and I'll be the first to say like I use AI, I'm not gonna uh um but I know that I can't rely on it 100%. Like, it's just not it can't give you the human nuance and the voice and tone and all the things that kinda make human communication and kind of, like, teaching, conveying topics, and it just can't do it. It can't really capture it, and so, um, it's really unfortunate a lot of people are, again, just kind of throwing in an AI, prompting it minimally, and, calling it a day. I think you're doing yourself a real disservice by doing that.
Yeah, you to your point, there's no personality in it. I mean, you can prompt it to give you a certain personality or whatever, but uh, it's really interesting because I can pretty much tell when something's been written by AI versus something's been written by a human. Who and well, let me say this. I can tell when somebody who's a really good writer has written something versus AI, right? The problem, I think, Lucas, is that a lot of people just don't see themselves as as being a good writer, and so they default to, "Well, this is an easier way to do this," as opposed to either learning how to write or finding somebody who can write for them and be very, very thoughtful about that. So I think that's a big challenge. I'd be curious, um, like and you've talked to people in our industry, property managers, those types of things. Where do you think the biggest room for improvement is in in our space, in the property management space, as you look across the landscape? And I'm not saying you study this all the time, but you definitely have experience with, obviously with Evernest, but then with a lot of other groups out there.
Yeah, I think, at least speaking to the areas that I have a lot of experience and expertise in, sales and marketing is, I think just how property managers acquire customers, acquire, new doors. I think just has to there are fundamentals that can be done still that were being done, 5 years ago as it pertains to SEO and, some of those things. Um, but I think with in the age of AI and the age of, um, paid ads are becoming increasingly more expensive, customer acquisition costs are shooting through the roof. Markets are becoming even more competitive. A lot of people are have been very attracted to the revenue model of property management and, a lot of roll-ups and all of these things, right? Like there are 1,001 ways to acquire a customer, but it's what's the most efficient and cost effective, and that's going to acquire you a customer that is going to have the best lifetime value. So just kind of figuring out, like, what kind of customer do I want and what's the most cost effective way for me to go and acquire them. And I think that there are a lot of things using social media. I mean, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. I work with clients on how to best use that and kind of marry content with outbound with a more sales led motion to, um, yeah, target these folks and to get in front of them in a very human, authentic way without having to worry about even email deliverability or if an ad is actually gonna show up in their feed and they're gonna click on it and all that stuff. So, I think that's a huge piece.
What do you think about and I want to talk to you more about LinkedIn because I think that's something you're really good at. What about newsletters? About like just communicating messages via newsletters.
Yeah, they definitely have a place. I think, they play kind of a multifaceted, role. In one sense, they're, a lead gen opportunity, right? Just first name, last name, email,
Mhm.
capture first party data so you can talk to people. Like that's,
Yeah,
uh
and you own that audience, right?
yeah, exactly.
There's
It's an
once
owned.
you have yeah, once you have that email, you own that audience, unlike a lot of social media. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's owned audience. And to your point about owned audience is it's a great tool, and tools like it, lead magnets, if you will, are really great to transfer traffic on some of these, like, what we would call borrowed, sources, right? So, social media is a borrowed channel, like, borrowed traffic,
Mhm.
and convert them there to an owned channel, email, right? And so something like a newsletter is a great opportunity. I know that's something we started when I was with Evernest, and, it's immediate access to your ideal buyers, um,
No.
in the channel email that, I don't even know the percent billions of people around the world still use today, so it's really important.
So let's talk about what are your like top when you're talking to people about building or like building a persona on LinkedIn to generate interest, to, build a brand. I guess you're coaching people how to build personal brand, right? So if you have a mom and pop, what I would call mom and pop property management company, right? It doesn't have to be your name in the company name, but it could be, hey, you own it, 2, 300 doors you're managing, you're in a market. How are you helping people better understand how to use LinkedIn to I don't know what you even call it, just like, I don't wanna say become an influencer, but to maybe even build an audience, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think mo I think a lot of people who should be using LinkedIn aren't using it because they think they have to become an influencer or they frame it as such, right? And I wouldn't even start there. Like, actually wouldn't even say that at all. Like, you could become one and still not call yourself one, and that is totally fine, right?
Sure, yeah,
But I I think the first thing I would say is, like, a little bit of a paradigm shift is, realizing that, and I think I realized this as well when I was with Evernest, was when we made the shift to focusing on investors, like, that was more of a shift to, like, a B2B model in a way, right? Like, the investor is a business owner. Like, that is a business,
mhm,
right? His rental property business. And, that's a fundamentally different way to market and sell, right? When you're a business selling to a business, it's different than when you're selling to a consumer. And LinkedIn is the home of business. It is the social media platform where people talk about business, people, conduct business, they sell their business, they do the whole thing, right? And so I think for, the investor and the property management owner, know that your ideal client is on LinkedIn. I think that's
yeah,
square one, right? And so then it's kind of 2 buckets for me. One is, to your point, kind of the influencer thing, which is really just creating content and becoming somebody who is displaying some expertise in the area and is becoming a known voice for it, right? And just again, just doing consistently, talking about the struggles of building a property management business, talking about, what you're seeing in the market, all of those kinds of things, right? And again, just doing it consistently over time. The other piece of it is actually building a network. Like, when I came to LinkedIn, I had this total misconception about, oh, like, the really big accounts, the influencers get that big because their content just goes hyper viral multiple times over the course of a few years. That might be true to a degree, but in large part it isn't. That's because, like, LinkedIn is a social network, right? And it demands that the people who want to grow do so by, like, making connections with real people, i.e., sending connection requests, right? Identifying, um, you know, who's in a given market. If I was a property management owner, um, I'd first identify what market I'm in, um, and then, uh, some of the, you know, identified by keywords in people's property tags or in people's profile tags and people's profile
yeah,
description.
search investor
Well,
under people descriptions, yeah,
yeah, and then I would basically create a lead list in Sales Navigator, and those are the people that I'm sending connections requests to every single week. Once they accept my connection request, I'm starting DM conversations with them, right? And so it's the content, but it's also this using it as a social network, right? And so then all of a sudden, the content actually just becomes a signal, the people that you're connecting with saying, "Oh, this seems like a real person," or like, "Oh, I really like their thoughts," or, "Oh, I'm just gonna follow along and linger for a little while." And then all of a sudden it prompts a conversation when maybe they come to find out that their current property management provider is horrible and they want to switch. Like, there's all sorts of things there. So they kind of play off of each other. And kind of they definitely do. And anyways, those are definite misconceptions I had. I know people have, but it's super powerful. Again, especially in the B2B space, which I would say property management owners are definitely in that space if you'd consider investors as, again, business owners.
yeah, that's definitely one we call, Mike and Mary the investor. We tend to think of this person as, they're a professional. They've got a
Yeah.
usually have a high income, high paying job, and they could be an attorney, they could be a physician, whatever the case is, but they're professionals, and they like the thought of diversifying their assets into real estate, and so they're interested in real estate, but they're not interested in, like, being a real estate investor hands-on, so they need somebody like a property manager. So that's kind of the way we think of Mike and Mary. I'm interested, I think you hit on something when you're talking about the 2 parts, creating content consistently and then really using it as a social network and more outreach type of stuff. I have found, like, consistency is probably the hardest thing, in my opinion, and it could be consistency in creating content, it could be consistency in reaching out. It's this mentality of the long game, because we're so conditioned to, if we don't get some type of dopamine hit, if we don't get some type of gratification from the activities of the day, then, well, it's just not working. We want this big thing. I mean, our remember, and my personality. When I first started at Evernest, one of the things I said to Matthew was like, "Hey, I want to start a newsletter." And he was like, "Spencer, I'm cool with that. If you want to do that, it just needs to be consistent. Are you going to be?" I said, "Dude, I'm going to be consistent." And I did it one time, and I like sent one newsletter, and I was done until you showed up. That's when, and I know you've heard that story because I've told it. That's and so when we were talking about a newsletter, I'm sure I said, "Hey, it has to be consistent." But the same thing with LinkedIn. The same thing with any if you want to put your voice out there, if you want to become an authority on a subject, you have to be consistent, and you can't always look at, well, this post only got 500 impressions. It only got 2 people that liked it or whatever. So talk a little bit about consistency, because this is something I see as one of the biggest challenges.
It's the greatest differentiator, I think, in, like, anything in life. In business, in your marriage and like, it just showing up day after day, being kind of that steady, presence, right? And in marketing, like, that is, I think, probably 90% of it, right? It's having knowing who you're serving, having the right message, sending it consistently. Like, it's that top of mind awareness effect, right? And so, um, yeah, exactly, like, LinkedIn, that is the name of the game, right? There are fundamentals for sure around, knowing, again, who you should be speaking to and how you're creating content, and if you're creating content, are your hooks strong enough? Are you telling good stories? Do you have clear CTAs, or are you tying in, like, universal principles that anybody could, resonate with? Like, there's fundamentals to that for sure. But to your point, like, getting up and posting 5 times a week, sending, like, 20 connection requests a day, making 10 comments on other people's posts a day, getting in 5 conversations in the DMs every day. Like, that's where you start to see, and again, it's just like any other channel in marketing, but it's just like anything else in business, right? When those things start to compound over the course of weeks and months and years, and then you see the full body of work, and then you see that, oh, there is this real snowball effect, right? There's this tiny little book, like, personal development book called The Compound Effect, and it basically, like, talks about that. You've probably read it too. um that's exactly it, right? It's these little actions that just compound over time. And that's what I love about marketing as well, is it's less this, like, magic, like, sleight of hands, like, coursing or, like, whatever. Like, you just, if you don't have the touch, you just don't have the touch. It is way more about consistency and making sure that consistency is met with the right channel and the right message. And if you figure that out, then you're gonna be doing just fine.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, like, I'm thinking of business owners, if you're listening to this and you have a BDM, like, this may be one of the activities that you want them doing, right, to get known in the market. If you're just in a little market, I mean, I don't care if it's Atlanta or if it's a Birmingham, it doesn't matter, but if you're in one market, what an incredible opportunity for your BDM to just start posting, doing outreach. They could carve out 30 minutes to an hour every day and do this very well. And also something to your point, if you're not good at it, guess what? If you continue, it's like reps, reps, reps. Get your reps in. And if you're getting your reps in, don't be satisfied with what you're writing. figure out how to write better. Like, take courses, learn from people, look at what other people are doing that you deem more successful, and then just continue to grow.
Mm.
I think, like, in my opinion, property managers are probably a great group to understand this because the whole business is a grind. It's like a nonstop grind. And any business owner out there, any property manager out there who's, you know, I don't know, signed up 100 doors, 200 doors, whatever, you've proven the ability to go out there and grind, and you can do the same thing on a platform like LinkedIn. So what do you think people get wrong on LinkedIn? Is it possible to post too much, or, maybe I'll just leave that wide open. What do you think people get wrong on LinkedIn?
Well, I mean, not being consistent is definitely
Yeah, like, posting once
not
every 3 weeks, right?
yes, yes.
Yes, the
And
there's
it is funny you bring up kind of the grind of property management, especially. I get it, like, turning LinkedIn into a revenue channel for your business is a grind, and it's one less grind you want to be on. Like, I get it.
I've already got a grind. It's called property management.
Exactly, exactly, and, but it's worth it. It's worth it. I'll leave it at that. So, yeah, the consistency is the biggest one. There's nitty-gritty things. Again, the writing, that is definitely a learned skill. Anybody can learn it. Anybody can learn how to write, how to tell a story. Having really weak hooks. The hook is the first couple lines of the post. It's meant to really capture someone. It's meant to, like, create a curiosity loop, like, make them ask a question of, like, "Oh, something's unresolved," so they have to keep reading, right? So, something that really captures people to then read the full post. A clear story, like a point to what you're talking about. Kind of what I would call, like, a turn. So once you go from the story to, like, "Okay, what's your point?" or "What's
Yeah, right.
ETA?"
This is what it means or whatever, yeah.
Exactly. So kind of closing that loop and then giving someone the next steps. Again, whether it's just engagement or it's actually like, "Click this," or, "Do this." Like, there's something really funny, like, psychologically happening there, and it's that people are enjoying your writing, i.e., like, they're having a dopamine hit from just, like, consuming your content, which means they're gonna keep coming back for more of it, right? And, like, that's fundamentally what you do when you become a great writer, right? Is you kind of incentivize people to keep reading, right? And so I think that's a huge one, is just mastering the art of writing. Um, the other thing that really revolutionized, my business, but even how I see LinkedIn, is that your profile isn't actually a resume, that your profile is actually a funnel. It's actually a way for you to funnel people from the banner at the top all the way down throughout the page. And how you craft that funnel is really important, from, like, again, the banner image you have at the top, like, what is it? It shouldn't just be like a sunset at the beach, you and your wife took on a
Save that for a Facebook
yeah,
ad
go
or
to
whatever.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Exactly, go to Facebook. But it should be something brand oriented, that it tagliney, or, like, has a CTA, or directs them to the section or the bio or something, right? Again, that, like, moves them down the funnel. Um, and again, because it's a funnel, it should have a goal. Like, there should be a goal, like a final destination that you're moving people towards. If you're a property manager, it should be something like, if you give out free rental reports. Like, I know that was a great lead magnet when I was at Evernest. Like, that
It's
thing,
still the best. It's still
it just
for any property manager, how much your property rent for, the rental guide is the best.
I mean, yeah, that would definitely be a great one. But again, yeah, just like the tagline right under your profile image, having a clear profile image. There's some CTA buttons you can add in there. There's all sorts of stuff, right? So really seeing that your profile as a business owner should be a funnel. Like, it should be a marketing funnel that you move people through, and your content is a tool to convert them. And yeah, so that's a big one. I'd say the last one is, again, just not connecting with people and not connecting with the right people. Um, so from the outset, really identifying, who are the people that either are my direct customers, or I think a huge opportunity for property managers. I was talking to an actual property management owner about this. Is like who are some tertiary players that refer this kind of business to a business like me all the time? Real estate agents. That's a perfect example, right? Like building a network of real estate agents. So all of a sudden, LinkedIn, it's not just a channel of leads for like direct investors, but it's a channel of it's a partner channel, right? All of a sudden, you have this relationship with with real estate agents who like your content, who know you're a manager looking for more doors, and all of a sudden they have somebody close, they have an investor who has a door or whatever, you're the first person they call. Like, it's a no-brainer.
Like, honestly, how many are connected with PMs, right? Especially, like, on LinkedIn or whatever. How many engage with them? Like, not many at all.
Yep.
So, I think that's absolutely an opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, it's a playbook that, like enterprise tech sales, they've been running for years, right? Who are the big, like, channel partners, they call it, right? Like, the people who are doing integrations or they're doing, like, tech build outs for, like, CRMs. Those are the kinds of people you wanna build relationships with because they're referring folks all the time, right? And again, we go back to, lowering acquisition costs, like, that's the best way to acquire a customer right there. Somebody just word of mouth referral.
They close they're the best close rate of any, of any lead is
Ex
gonna be the referral.
exactly. Yep.
Plus, you just have people out working for you. It's really fantastic. So again, it is about building relationships with which if you're the owner of the business, you should be doing, but then if you have 1 or 2 BDMs, you should be teaching them how to do that, which I think is fantastic. Um, I'd just like to, I do want to give people an opportunity to get in touch with you, Lucas. I was just trying to think like how we want to wrap this up. What do you foresee the future of content being over the next 5 to 10 years, from where we are today?
Yeah. Um, well, I think AI is going to get better, unfortunately. Or fortunately, or depending on how you see it. I think it will get better. I think that there's always gonna need to be a human touch involved in it. So there will be a lot more uh opportunities to outsource to a degree to AI and it just again get better and so people's volume can increase. But I think that there's still a premium put on like authentic human thought leadership, like actual faces, actual talking heads. I mean, exactly again what Evernest has built out, what Matthew yourself, like you've been so I would say prolific. Like maybe you don't feel like you're prolific, but the consistency is, right? Like years of publishing and just like going back and like all of the credibility that's built and the domain expertise and all that. Like I think that that's still going to win out, right? And you see this happening in editorial spaces, right? Like you see tech companies buying up editorial newsletters. Like um, you see news outlets really, really diving into these like premium shows and like talking head type show. Like it's gonna be around. So I think that's a huge piece, and it's a huge opportunity for anybody who is willing to grind for sure. And what we would call like build in public, right? Share your thoughts on your business and the market and the industry, whatever, and do it consistently on an internet medium. I think that's still gonna be king.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's gonna be a premium on, like, the human touch. Definitely a
Mhm.
premium on the human touch, and I would just also wanna encourage anybody who's listening out there, maybe you said you've tried it, maybe you tried to create content. I mean, obviously, we're a big believer here. We've been doing it for 11 years now, and, I like, even recently, let me just be very transparent. Even recently, we've got a couple of podcasts. We have this podcast, we have the Evernest Real Estate Investor podcast. I just haven't seen the movement from the real estate investor podcast that I wanted to. and we've kinda upped our game. I've got a co-host, Adam, Hobson, who's fantastic. He's a real estate investor here in town. We've interviewed some great folks around the country, and I was just talking to Graham, our president, about it, and I was just like, "Yeah, man, just kinda a little bit discouraged because it's just not doing what I wanted to do." And he said, "Man, this is a time of sowing seeds. Like, this is evergreen stuff. Like, just keep keep the faith, keep doing it, keep connecting, keep putting yourself out there." And we know, like, for us, we think content's kind of like a moat, and we're building that moat, we're widening the moat from our competition. And so uh yeah, so my encouragement, if you hadn't started, start. And if you have started, maybe you've gotten a little discouraged, don't quit. Don't give up. I call it the courage not to quit. Just keep going.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I would say is, if you need somebody to speak into what you're doing from copy standpoint, marketing voice or whatever, I would highly recommend Lucas. So Lucas, how can people get in touch with you if they want to reach out and learn more about what you're currently doing now with Veritas Copy?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best place. I live there.
Right.
Out of my permanent residence.
We will have
Good.
the link to his LinkedIn.
Wollschlager, yep,
Yeah, we'll have his LinkedIn in the show notes for sure.
yep, best
Lucas
place.
Wollschlager, and it's just your LinkedIn profile.
Yep, there it is.
You're on it every day?
Every day,
Every day.
every day. And I mean, I'll say, like, to the discouragement, I've been doing it consistently for 6 months, off and on for multiple years, but the consistent for 6 months, I'm just at the point now, 6 months in, where I know what hooks are going to land, I know which ones aren't. I know what will get impressions and what won't. I know what's gonna generate conversation and what won't. Um, and, everything's a data point, you know, and you just gotta keep showing up.
Yeah. Well, this has been encouraging for me because I'm not as consistent as I probably should be. So I need to recommit and think of some good hooks and some good stories. Create a little tension.
You got them in there. You got them in there.
I do. Unfortunately, some of them are not well, maybe I could turn them into a post. Yeah. I could probably do that.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, Lucas, this has been fantastic catching up with you, man. Also, I love the logo. I love the V that you have because it reminds me of Viore, the clothing brand, that V, and I'm a big fan of theirs. So I love the marketing from that standpoint too. So thanks for being here. Appreciate your time, and that is it for this episode of the Evernest Property Management Show. We'll be back next week with a new episode. Thanks, everybody.